Hey, I'm Pep, and in this video we're going to take a look at Safranito. Now, this is essentially a dexterity game, but it has quite a few other elements to it that make it interesting for people who aren't necessarily fans of dexterity. So I'm just going to pop open the box and we're going to take a look right away. No hidden compartments. I always like to check that. The rule book is a pretty easy read. It also comes in multiple languages, so that's the rules. It's essentially 3 pages of rules. This is the only part you really need. The little table to give you what you need to use based on the number of players. Now, this game has quite an interesting setup because it has a large board that actually has little connector bits to make sure the board stays together, because this is a dexterity game and you do not want these boards coming apart. Now, if you're a fan of cooking, especially with a lot of spices, that's exactly what this game is. You're trying to make particular spice blends like this, and the first person to make 3 blends of spices wins the game. And there's always going to be a number of these spices just kind of sitting out, depending on the number of players that people have access to. Now, it's not as simple as you might imagine, It's not like you just throw this little chip and land on a spice and say, oh, I get to claim that spice. No. Each round, the spices are limited. So you're going to flip out however many cards, and you're going to put those spices into play. So in this case, we got cinnamon, we got some mint, we have some little seeds. I'll look up afterwards what all these things are. Some more mint, some cumin, I think it is, some garlic, some more cumin, probably some more garlic. And so there's a lot of things that just aren't going to be available that round. Now, again, depending on the number of players, you'll be throwing a certain number of these, but you need to have all of these anyway for an important reason, because there's numbers on the back. It goes 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And the reason for that is that's the cost. Everyone's going to start off with, I believe it's $200. And you're going to be using that $200 in order to buy these spices. So if you throw a chip and it lands in that particular area, now it's going to have to stay there because other people are going to be throwing chips. But the way that you figure it out is you look and you see, is it in that circle? Yes. Is it in that circle? Still yes. The only way you don't get to claim it is if it's like that. Now you're not in that circle at all. So the little circle in the center tells you whether or not you have it available. Now, let's just say another player, I'll even pick this randomly, has also landed in there. Well, at the end of the round, after everyone's done throwing however many, and these, of course, will also bounce around, you have the opportunity to buy or sell. So if we flip these over, we'll notice red said they would buy this for 40, green said they'd buy it for 30. Now, the way this works is whoever has the highest value will get the choice of buying first. Now, there are 2 available, so that would be fine. But let's say instead that I also had that one in there. I have the highest total value. But the unfortunate part about having multiple in the same thing is that my value is now 80. So if I actually want to buy it, it's going to cost me 80. And then after I would buy 1, I would pay the 80, and then I remove 1 chip. Now, the next highest, which would be red, would have the opportunity to buy. Now, if instead I had had the 40 and they had had the 30, I would actually be able to buy a second time. Now, before the buying happens, you have the opportunity to sell. So let's say that had happened, and I actually already had one of these mint in my hand. Well, I have 80 in there, so I could choose to sell my mint. If you sell, though, these things are removed, so you can't get any buying, selling shenanigans. And the important thing to note is that they don't actually go here, they just get thrown away. So these are just the 2 that were there originally. And then they would have the opportunity to buy it. And at the end of the round, if you can build one of these spices, then you do it. And the first person to get 3 is the winner. Now, there is a little pepper grinder that gets passed around because this is the first player token. And buying happens in turn order. So if you are the same person who can buy the third spice, like you and another player are both tied, you're both going to be able to buy it, well, you're going to buy it before they do because you have the first player token, of course. So that becomes critically important. Now, like in most games, it'll pass every round. But on top of that, if you land right there, you get first player token at the end of the round. So that means that you'll get this before something like this happens. So you can use that as a nice little way to grab the victory. But then at the end of the round, it passes to the next player, which is actually kind of good because it means you throw last. And throwing last gives you a lot of power because you could save your low number chips for later and then kind of throw them in at the end. Now, the other ones, there is this, which gives you an extra throw at the end. You just get to move this, throw another one in. This one gives you one of these from the pile. Now you draw cards equal to whatever number you had showing here. So in this case, I would draw 3 and I would pick 1. So I would take this, for example. And then last up is this, which gives you one of these cards. No one else gets to see it. It's just kind of like a private card that only you can complete. So that is very helpful. Now, I said before that I would say what the spices are. I believe they're on the back here. Yes. I'll go to the English version, though, since... Here we go. So, there's curry, ginger, cardamom, chili, garlic, mint, cumin, saffron, and cinnamon. Oh, I was actually looking at saffron before. Whoops. But yeah, that's essentially the entire game. You play until people have gotten 3 of those, which doesn't take too long, usually 3 or 4 rounds, depending on how badly people throw. You know, if you happen to throw it off the board, it still counts. It won't win you anything. Also, just being on the board doesn't mean anything. But, just because you miss, it's possible that later on, somebody might end up hitting you and, oh, they hit me onto a new area. Now I'm actually in 2 separate areas. I guess I hit myself. So the game is pretty interesting. The dexterity element is a lot of fun. The other thing of note about this game is it has a very nice insert. I kind of have things exploded a little bit here, but it has spot for both types of cards. It has the spots for the chips here, and everything fits into its little areas, a little spot for the first player token. Everything's very solid in the box, which is nice. The components don't really move around all that much. Anyway, that's been a look at Safranito. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and as always, live free, game hard.